Live, the news that's as local news gets. News 12, Long Island.
Well, so many people are upside down with their mortgages, meaning they owe more than their house is actually worth. But is Long Island's housing market poised to make a comeback? We'll talk to a real estate expert about what to expect in the new year.
Welcome back. Home prices losing ground after making small gains over the summer. Prices dropped in major cities across the country, including Atlanta, San Francisco, even Tampa. So what outlook do Long Islanders have when it comes to the real estate market? In a recent News 12 Hofstra poll, we asked Long Islanders what they thought would happen to the price of their home over the next 6 to 12 months. You see the results right there. 42% said prices would stay essentially the same. 27% say they expect prices to decrease, but not too steeply. 14% said increase, but not steeply. 5% said steep decrease. 4% said they expected the value to increase steeply. The rest undecided. So what do the professionals think about the prospects of the real estate market? Joining me now is Eldridge, broker and owner of RE/MAX offices in Melville and Smithtown. Alan is also the regional vice president of the RE/MAX New York State Broker Council. Appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you for having me.
You saw that poll. 42% said they think prices would essentially stay the same. Where do you come out on that?
Well, I tend to agree with them. I think if you look at the numbers that have come out, even today, the Case-Shiller Index came out and showed prices in the New York City metropolitan area decreasing by 2.6% over the past year. On Long Island, we see the same numbers, a decrease of about 4.2% over the past year. So we've had a small decrease. Okay. Nothing significant.
And when we look at the housing market, when we talk about the housing market, it's important to, as you say, regionalize it, because Long Island is not necessarily, we're not in Florida, we're not in California, we're not in some of these places that are hit really hard. So nationally, the trends may be a little bit different than they are on Long Island, right?
That's correct. If you look at the annual sales over the past 3 years, we've held pretty steady. In 2010 to 2011, there was a drop of about 10%, but most of that it was a result of the first-time home buyers tax credit. So we saw a bump in 2010, but if you look back 2009 to 2011, sales have been pretty steady over the island.
Okay, so are there any hurdles right now to buying a home on Long Island?
Oh, absolutely. The economy is a big hurdle, obviously. That's a national issue. Pricing is always very, very important. If homes are priced correctly, they sell in a fairly short amount of time. If they're not, then they obviously take longer. Okay, so how long is the average home on the market here on the island, or is that even, can you even make that? Well, it's a great question. If you look at the statistics, it takes about 12 months on average to sell a home on the island. However, again, if you look at particulars and you get into pricing, that number can be significantly lower depending upon how the property is priced. And how are the banks helping out at this point? I mean, you hear all these stories about the banks being a little tighter right now with lending money, and it's just harder for the first-time buyer to come up with the, not only just dealing with the banks, but then the down payment. It's harder for everyone, not just first-time home buyers. The documentation that banks require today is significantly more than it used to be. The requirements for borrowing are much more difficult, and even appraisals have raised issues in today's market. So if you were to give advice, let's say I'm a first-time home buyer, and I come to you, what advice would you give me looking here on the island? Are there any hot spots for me to look at, or do I need to look at a certain type of house? What would you tell me? Well, my suggestion is first determine how much house you can afford. And then looking at different areas that you are interested in, I would get a professional real estate agent to work with you, hopefully a RE/MAX agent, and then let them start a search for you. So now we hear about all these deals out there with foreclosures and short sales. Is that an option still on Long Island? Are there still plenty of those, or are they keeping prices down? They are keeping prices down, and short sales are very, very difficult to work with, only because you have to get the bank to agree to the short sale, and it's difficult to find who now has control over the loan. So it's a very, very tough situation in trying to get a short sale to close. Okay, and what about foreclosures? Foreclosures are out there, not as many as there used to be. The federal regulations that were put in place just recently have made it more difficult now to foreclose on people. So the number of foreclosures are, at least on Long Island, are are not as many as we used to have.
Now, as you look at this, the housing market long term on Long Island, are we ever going to see the old levels again?
I doubt it. I doubt it. I think what we're going to see going forward excuse me, is a slight rise in the number of units being sold, and hopefully prices staying where they are. You might see a slight decrease in prices. You may see prices remaining stable.
But it's going to be pretty much status quo for...
Status quo as it is.
All right. Appreciate that, Alan Eldridge, Regional Vice President, RE/MAX, New York State Broker Council. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.